boy, this is a long one. And because YouTube is a dick and stuck a 15-minute time limit on my videos for no good reason, this video is getting split up into a bunch of parts. If you'd rather watch the review in one go instead of navigating around YouTube, there is a link to a blip version below. When I released the first part of the Animorphs video game guide, I tried shopping it around at different places, and I got more than one comment about how my review was informative, but as someone who didn't read Animorphs growing up, they were still left kinda confused. I'm not sure what I can do about that beyond recommending you read the series. They hold up pretty well. But that raises an interesting question I had not considered when playing these games. What exactly do these games have to offer to people who are not fans of Animorphs, haven't read a single book or watched a single episode of the television series? In the case of the Game Boy game, the answer is not much, but I find that a bit ironic as it's probably the closest to the original source material. It's the only game to directly adapt specific books to video game form. It's the only game that actually has Axe as a character. And for those who don't know, Axe is kind of a big deal, being the team's strongest warrior, giver of science fiction info dumps, and the comic relief all rolled into one. The game featured the Lyrans, a relatively obscure alien race in the mythos. The problem was, while it had all these details, Animorphs for the Game Boy Color just didn't have the beat on the soul of the series. For every reference it pulled from the source material, it never attempted to connect these references in any meaningful way. There is no actual urgency in stopping the Yeerks. You're never given a big picture to worry about. There's the Andalite processor thing that ties the four subplots together, but you never find out what they do or why it's so dangerous for the Yeerks to have them. It's all just meaningless stuff that bounces around and has very little interaction with each other. These games all came out in the year 2000, and while storytelling in gaming is super serious stuff today, it was only really just becoming so back then. But really, I'm not asking much here. I mean, Pokemon is no literary masterpiece, but it still had an overarching goal, becoming a Pokemon master that drew you into several big subplots that made you care about what was going on. I mean, there's nothing in the Game Boy Color game that comes close to the intensity and epicness of trying to liberate the Sylph Company building from Team Rocket. Team Rocket, who are kind of a joke in the overall Pokemon universe, are more threatening in the Gen 1 games than the alien invaders who wanted to rip off your face in the Game Boy Color game. Their threat had escalation, from harassing people in caves, to bridge scams, to robbing homes, to running gambling rings, and finally a hostile takeover of the biggest business in the entire island. They also had a leader, someone to serve as the face for their operations and to serve as a boss character. And this game was released 4 years before the Animorphs ripoff. So let's segue that into the second game, Animorphs Know the Secret for the PC.
Hi there. I know you're probably not used to talking to a hawk, but there's a bunch of things in my world that you've never seen before. My name is Tobias. I can't tell you my last name or any of my friends' last names or where we live or our phone numbers or just about anything. I wish we could, but we can't. You see, you're probably like most people who look up at the stars at night and wonder what it would be like if creatures from another planet ever landed on Earth. Well, you can stop wondering. It really happened. Not so long ago, the Earth was invaded by an alien race, the Yeerks, and their evil leader, Visser III. The Yeerks take control of other creatures by crawling into their heads and turning them into controllers or slaves. The Yeerks have already conquered other races on other planets, and their mission on Earth is moving fast. Many people in our town may seem normal at first, but they're far from normal. Even our school vice principal, Mr. Chapman, is a controller and a leader in the recruiting organization called the Shadow. Andalite warriors came to Earth to battle the Yeerks. They failed. But before they were defeated, a brave Andalite, Prince Elfingor, found me and my friends, Rachel, Marco, Cassie, and Jake. He gave us a really cool power. He gave us the ability to morph, to change into any animal we touch by acquiring its DNA.
Go ahead, Marco. It's your turn to try.
Wow, it amazes me every time.
Check it out. I came up with a name for it. Animorph. Get it? Animal morph?
Yeah, Marco. Animorphs. That's us. 5 kids versus the Yeerks. And we're the only ones left who can stop them. If the sharing spreads any further, the human race will surely be doomed. We need your help.
In many respects, this game is the exact opposite of the Game Boy Color game, in that it's possibly the least accurate to the source material in terms of details, but the nearest to the actual soul of the series. There's an actual plot that can be understood, an escalating conflict with a real threat behind it, a villain to serve as a face of the enemy, distinct characters who joke around, support each other, worry about their families and the fate of the world. The threat of the Yeerks is the most well explained here. It utilizes the Animorphs as a group instead of controlling them one at a time. There are moments of combat, moments of sneaking, moments of exploring, and of escaping, and of solving problems. This is the nearest you'll get to the Animorphs experience in video game form. Which isn't to say it's good. Oh, hell no, this game sucks. Though obviously less so than its Game Boy Color counterpart. The game was developed by Gigawatt Studios, who did a sizable amount of licensed games in the 90s and early 2000s, including Pinky and the Brain World Conquest, Secret Agent Barbie, and a Men in Black game that I actually played back in the day. I don't remember it being very good. It had very stiff controls and was too dark and serious for something adapted for such a fun and lighthearted film.
Sorry, but it was you or me, partner, and I'm not ready for that trip.
Actually, that's kind of the opposite of this Animorphs game, which is far more lighthearted than its source material, even more so than the Nickelodeon show. This is an adventure game, in the vein of many LucasArts and Sierra games, which should be a warning sign for you right there. Adventure games is a genre that died for a reason. It functioned in such a haphazard way that often punished players for exploration, killing them over the most asinine details, requiring you to cover every inch of an environment and rub every item you find together in hopes of stumbling onto the developer's train of logic. I'll be honest, this is not my favorite genre. I've never met a King's Quest game I ever liked. Myst can suck my dick, and the seventh guest needs to sit in the corner over its little soup can stunt. Animorphs Know the Secret has many of the problems that typically plague adventure games, but have come up with a unique way to get around them. The game plays itself for you. Oh sure, you press the buttons and make things happen, but the game goes out of its way to make sure you play this game in exactly the right way. Items that you need to take will be floating around and spinning and are being totally obvious, regardless if it actually makes any sense for that item to be there or for you to take it. And you can't leave a location until you've collected everything. And when it comes to using these items, the game will directly tell you how they should be used. The most egregious example is when Marco finds a train wheel just lying around randomly in a controller's office.
Cool! I found a wheel to some old train or something. Marco, what were you saying about your uncle and collecting things? Yeah, I know, but this is really cool!
No, don't ask me how the Animorphs are morphing with a full inventory that includes a train wheel. Then, way further down the line, after collecting even more random crap, you find a broken minecart. You need to make it operational again, but instead of figuring it out for yourself, the game solves the problem for you, but expects you to actually go into the inventory and use these items yourself. And it stops you after every step, and look, here, just watch it for yourself.
This thing is missing a lever. Try that one we found back at the Yeerk retreat. There it is.
Now what?
It looks like something needs to be inserted into that glowing section.
Glowing section? Didn't we find some kind of glow stick thingy earlier?
Hurry up and check the inventory. Great, there's no wheel.
Lucky for us, I grabbed one at the mining company. Just check the inventory.
I hope you know what you're doing, Marco.
Let's get in that minecart. I'll drive.
I think we should take a vote on that.
This is not fun. This is the worst example, but the entire game has this kind of hand-holding, solving the problems for you, but making you do the work anyway. It's like a math worksheet, only instead of doing the math yourself, the teacher gives you the answers for you. But you still have to write them down. There's no way to lose in this game. Sure, there are portions of it that you can fail at, but failing just results in you playing these parts of the game again and again until you get it right. There's no game over screen, there's no save function. The game autosaves at certain points for you. You can morph, but only in tiny designated areas marked with a sound effect, and only the morph that the story says you need at that exact moment. If you try to morph when you haven't been authorized, you are forced to immediately demorph. This quote-unquote game is just not all that interactive, though it gives the illusion of being interactive. You move characters around with a tank-style control scheme in a soundstage with map paintings along the walls in an attempt to trick players into thinking this is an exterior environment. But going anywhere besides the designated locations and doing anything beyond the designated tasks is just wasting your own time. This game kind of reminds me of Dear Esther, a first-person art game where the player has no incentive but to press the forward button for half an hour while they're narrated at. These are both basically movies where you have to press buttons to see the next part. There are some piss-easy minigames, even the ones that are unfair to colorblind people like myself, and again, you can't actually fail at them. The only part of the game that you could argue is interactive is the combat. You can select from a rather expansive list of morphs to use, from the traditional morphs like tigers, bears, and wolves to some rather odd choices like llamas, ostriches, and eventually dinosaurs, but I'll get back to that. You do combat as a group, meaning you have a number of different combinations, and each morph has 8 special moves that are gradually unlocked throughout the game, triggered using a combination of buttons. Think the combat system of a Final Fantasy game combined with Street Fighter combo moves. But despite all these options, there's just no strategy in any of this. The game booklet hints that certain moves against certain enemies inflict more damage, but I don't actually think that's true. Without any kind of health gauge over the enemies or a hit number given with each blow, there's no way to see just how effective each hit is. On occasion, a little message will pop up like ×2 or super hit that seems to indicate that the move was much more effective, but repeating the exact same move against the exact same enemy doesn't always bring that message back up, which leads me to believe that this is more akin to randomized critical hits in Pokemon than you finding a specific enemy's weak spot. All of this becomes moot if you stumble across the hidden moves grafted to the number keys. They're called Andalite's Lunge and Elfangor's Wrath, and they pretty much make mincemeat out of anything that crosses their paths. Not that you'll really need them, as combat is super easy. Even without the super moves, it only takes about 3 or 4 hits to take out an enemy. You heal between battles, a major improvement over the Game Boy Color game, but if you need to heal in battle, you can use energy bars. Yeah, for some reason video programmers think that being low in health means you have a rumbly-tumbly. Energy bars are way too easy to find, and you don't really need them that often. So by the end of the game, you'll have about 100 or so just sitting there while you tear aliens up with Elfangor's Wrath. Did Elfangor really have a lot of wrath? He was a cowardly cadet who became famous by accident and whose final act before his death was trying to pussy out with a time machine.